Howdy everybody. Thanks for tuning back in with the Big Bear Wood Shack. Today's video, I'm just going to actually go over how to effectively remove the most material from your spoon bowl to make it so it's more pleasurable experience, as well as that you can expedite the experience as well too, and not hurt your hands, your wrists, all of your joints, and even your ligaments, which I have actually done in the first years of my journey and caused some burnout because of that. So let's try to avoid that, and here, let's get right into it. First things first, before I even bring the spoon out, and that's me waving it around, make sure you've got your Carving Classics on. That's right, I pull my socks over top of my good old jogging pants right now. I'm off work, and it's snowing outside, and I just felt like it, okay? So that's that. Shout out to Crocs. Make sure you got your comfortable comfy wear going on. And these holes here for speed, they are perfect for when you drop a knife and it goes straight into the holes. It works amazing. Anyway, back to it. Here we are. So this is just a recent spoon blank that I just axed out the other day. It's made out of birch, and it's pretty decent. There's a little bit of work I have to do to it, but the main thing about this spoon is that my wife wanted something, and I have not carved or anything in a little while. And I should have had this done almost a year ago, actually, but this is going to be for our family, so it's going to be coming into our kitchen. So I wanted to put a little more time, effort, and love into it. So yeah, but here we are, and we are going to go ahead and take a lot of the material out. Now, one of the biggest things that is pretty daunting when you first get into green spoon carving is there's a lot of material to get rid of on the spoon itself, when it's in its log form, to billet form, to the spoon blank itself. There's a lot of wood that has to come off, and by removing it effectively and with the least amount of strain on your body, you're going to be able to do so much more carving and enjoy it a lot further. Trust me, for somebody who myself has been a self-taught learner, and I started from the ground up, I burned a lot of my muscles out, getting rid of materials uselessly until I invested in the right tools and made it a little bit easier for myself. So here's the first couple of tools that I've gone through to use, and then I'll land off and give a demonstration on the tool that I'm currently using. So when it comes to the actual bowl itself and getting material, you want to be able to get all of it at once. If you could just sort of melt out sort of this entire area and scoop it to the side, and then bring in a small a hook knife or any kind of hook knife to be able to get in there and refine it afterwards, is ideal. But there's still a lot of material here that needs to be used. You can do it many different ways. I want to stress that. There's many different ways to be able to remove the material based off of your skill level, how you've learned, and how your comfort level is with the tools that you own. So again, there's a handheld way that we can go through, but I'm going to go through my method only. And then there's a couple of different tools that you can actually either acquire or try to use in order to get a nice bowl finish. And this is without the use of power tools, people. This is completely hand tools. So there's a couple of tools that you can use that I own a few, and I do use them for specific projects and specific spoon bowls. So this guy here, it's an old knife. This is not a review. We're not going to go through all the knives and pull them out and everything like that, but this is just to give you an example. This comes from a company called Beavercraft. It's what they call a Kuxa knife. It's very low quality. It's not expensive whatsoever. I ended up putting a sheath on it to keep it safe, and it's dual beveled on either side. So what you can do is, again, once you actually have your spoon, and usually it's fastened. It would be fastened with something like a spoon mule or something to be able to clamp the side so the spoon's not going to go anywhere. A vise, anything. There's certain clamps that actually have rope that go over the top that you can actually put your foot on and put down so it clamps it down. There's many different ways to be able to hold your spoon static, and that is actually the biggest part of the secret. When you're moving two objects at once, there's a lot more room for error, but there's also a lot more room for not removing the material the best way possible. There's too much shock in what you're doing from both ends. Whereas when you have something fixed, and then you can go ahead and safely put something on it and start removing materials, there's not so much bounce back or shock, and you can go ahead and get the most for the least. This is not the tool that I use to be able to get smooth bowls. To start and hog off the wood is what the terminology is called. That's my term anyway. This is one of the older tools that I used to use, which I only use for specific applications at this point. there is this guy here. This is a Tuca cam knife. Now, this is a Welsh knife that goes back in history, actually, and there's a lot more historical sort of information on this type of stuff. But again, this is not a tool review. This is about how to remove the material. This, again, same concept, can go ahead and start to scoop out and remove a lot of that larger material. So this is one of those things. Tuca cam, it's spelled Twca. And that is, again, it's a Welsh word. So this has been around for a long time. This guy is okay. This is made by a company called Beelzebub. Actually, it's Miguel out in Portugal. It's his own company, and he does a great job, but this is the first generation. So there's got a bit of flex on it. I got it off my man John, and a little flex on it, which starts to get a little bit annoying, is because you want to have as much rigidity as possible to be able to sort of get a nice smooth cut all the way through. So this is another one, for example. You can get into things like gouges, and that's kind of where I'm leading up to. This right here is a swan neck gouge, mainly for larger bowls, kuksas, cups, and things like that. Not necessarily a spoon such as this, but it doesn't mean that you can't use it for this. I've used it for a few different spoons, and as long as you know your grain directions, you can hog off a lot of wood pretty quickly with this type of guy. You need to be very careful though as well. It also needs to be used two-handed. You cannot use it one-handed. It's very unsafe to use it one-handed. It becomes a weapon at that point. So you have to use it two-handed for safety and stability. I don't use this again for most of my bowls, but again, this can be used. Standard hook knife. So inside here, the sheath that I made, there is an actual hook knife. It is a Wood Tools by Robin Wood. Again, really nice knife. I've had it now for a few months. I've actually carved out the majority of my bowls with this knife. And again, really, really great job. Not going to pull it out, not a review. This is the hand method that I was talking about. So when you do have it, you can brace it against your body, and most people will start at the tip of the bowl here because that's the way the grain is running. And then what you're going to do is you're going to pry it down kind of like this over and over. And that's going to basically gouge out a lot of the wood yourself using smaller cuts, but getting more off. Now, again, the hand method is more for when you're sitting around a fire, sitting with friends, you're out in the woods, or maybe that's your preferred method of choice, and that's completely fine. For me, I just make it easier on my hands because, as you know, your hands itself, we have all of our ligaments and our tendons that are running through here. And the more you take your hand, and I'm right-handed, and you'll grip. So something in spoon carving is called a close grip in order to go ahead and get a lot of the material off. Notice my hand is just opening and closing. So again, we're not going through the tools here. So when you're doing that over and over and over again, trying to refine what you're doing, you're building your muscles, but you're also straining your joints and your ligaments. And where you'll start to feel it is going to start to travel up your arm, and it's going to go to your elbow. And then sometimes as bad as going all the way up to your shoulder and neck. And I have had that. I've actually carved so much in my early start to this greenwood carving journey. Junie, it's my daughter's name. Anyway, so I did so much, and I was doing more hardwoods than greenwoods, is that I literally blew this arm out completely, and I had to take about 2 months off to heal and fully recover. I could barely grip anything. Just trying to pump gas into the car, I could barely even do that. It wasn't like a shaky, it was just my arm all the way to my elbow was completely shot, and I had to do a lot of resting, a lot of stretching in order to get it back. Now, I didn't go and seek help for it. I did it on my own, and I did get it back again, but it's definitely received some damage over time. So in the future, as we move forward, it's all about relieving yourself of this damage that it's putting on your body. So now it comes down to my method and how I actually do it. So here's an actual crash course. Here we are, top of the bench. So this is a very janky and very rudimentary style vise. It's an old Stanley vise. They're not super expensive. They basically are about 40 or 50 bucks. And then you can just mount it anywhere. It's actually got clips, so if you don't want to screw it down somewhere, you can clip it to a counter. It's fine. It's done what it's need to do for me. I've installed some sort of wood clamps on both sides, and these are uprights in order to sort of support the spoon while I'm doing my work. And I like to stand up when I do this kind of thing. So again, Not all the time. I do use my spoon mule too. It's just currently in the shop. Oh, I don't even know what that means. I got a little thing, a couple things to tweak on it just to get it up and running, but it's just outside the store. I don't use it too often. I built it late last fall. I haven't been able to get out there and tweak it yet. So yeah, here we are. So this is what I kind of use. Very simple. Vise just slides back and forth the end. So here we are. Pop the spoon in there. What I typically try to do is make it so that you can actually, again, access the whole bowl itself. Let's see if we can try to get a bit closer here. Access the whole bowl itself, and again, have it so that nothing's in the way. But you also want to be careful, and depending on how the spoon is and how you've designed it, if the neck is really thin and you've axed it out, you have to be very careful where you're actually doing it. Some people will go ahead, or clamping it, some people will go ahead, and I have those too, as just small spacers you just toss down there. It's just to make it more rigid, so there's not so much sort of flex in the weakest point of the actual spoon itself. So for this guy, it's a bit of a thicker handle. It is birch. It's pretty hardy. I'm okay with this. I'm just going to go ahead and crank it down just to go ahead, and it's pretty solid. So that's basically it. Now, here we go. We're just going to get right into it. Boom. Gouge. That's all it is. It can be a bent gouge, which is typically better for what you do, and not a straight gouge. You can see that this is a straight gouge. This is also a hammer style gouge. So this is for large, boom, 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 sort of big sculpting and taking large swaths off. Now for me, I ended up receiving this as a gift. I liked the edge and how big it was and the geometry, so I decided to give it a whirl. And honestly, it's done a great number on my spoons. I can't say anything worse about it. FlexCut's a very entry-level company. Really good guys over at FlexCut. I've worked with them a little bit. I've, again, can't say anything bad about them. They're really, really good. A lot of their tools are very ergonomic, so anybody who's getting into the craft, if you went for FlexCut, you would probably have a really good time with it, only because that you're able to carve very effectively with how their edges are and how they, the degree of the edge that they grind for most of their knives and that type of stuff. Some ups and downs with the company as well too, but again, these are entry level. So this is how it is. All I'm doing is I'm going ahead, I'm just going to get rid of the material just like this. I'm going to go a cross grain cut, and I'm just going to get rid of it. Now, a lot of the things also that you have to remember is this area right here where you're doing your crank. The crank is the relation of the handle as opposed to the bowl. So this is the point where it starts to bend. Now, what you want to do is you want to remove mostly all of this, because this is the part where along the sides here you might have a little bit, it's going down a little bit further from your saw cuts or whatever. Now, some people use this method, some people don't, which is why I remind you that this is only one way to be able to get your spoon bowl material out quickly. Many more ways to do that. We can sit and debate this all day long. This is currently how I do it, and this is basically saving my hands, my tendons, my arms, and everything else. So here we go. So I usually start right here in the crease. I'll try to go back as far as I can, and even sometimes off the bowl. So you're just going to try, that's it, one little swath. Now the blade is so sharp that I don't actually really have to do too much in terms of putting pressure. This is birch, it's only a spoon. I don't need to sit and mallet it down. I just have to kind of lean my body into it, and it'll go ahead and start taking it out. So here we go. So I'm barely applying any force, and right away I've completely gotten rid of the crank line. So we're already in a way better spot. I have not strained myself yet, and it's only been 5 passes, and I'm still feeling great. This is just one spoon. So again, if you were production carving too, if you really love it and you were doing it to the point where all of a sudden restaurants are calling you saying, hey, I need an order of 20 spoons by Friday, go ahead and try to, get that order done if you can. But if you're going to be doing that type of stuff, then this is the best ways to order to get it off fast so you can get back to the actual carving part. So here we go. Super easy. Again, birch is easy stuff. This is not exactly straining me right now. This isn't more dense wood like apples or anything. There's way more woods out there that are dense, harder to work with. They have figured grain. They've got all kinds of stuff going on that's going to cause a little bit of stress when you're kind of, carving and stuff like that. But for the most part, this is it. You're just going to keep on going cross cut until you've kind of got the bowl definition. Now, it's okay to go past the lines too, so the lines of the actual rim of the bowl. It's all right because there's so much work still to do. You're going to come back over this later on with a knife and make sure it's nice and smooth. Just make sure that you've got some material to go over that knife with. So don't carve too much off the back, leave yourself a little bit of meat, and now go ahead and just keep on doing this. Now, cross-grain cuts are not finishing cuts. This is not how I finish the bowl. This is how I get the majority of my material off. Now with a bent gouge, it would actually flow a little bit nicer, but for this guy, I'm just bending it on my own, and it's doing exactly what I want it to do. Now, as you can see, if this was harder material, such as an apple or something more dense, you'd have to be working it for a little while in order to get what you want, because you might be taking smaller chips off based off the density of the wood, or it might be, yeah, and don't even worry about this because we're going to go back over it again. Yeah, so you would be actually kind of now switching up and coming back down this way, because this is how the actual grain direction goes, and that's going to be a separate video. I'm going to just wrap it up here, but the grain direction, as you can see, you can actually see how it goes up and down and how I've carved it to be able to be like this. So with the bowl, it's kind of convex, or concave, sorry. What's going to happen is the actual grain direction for the sort of a knife finish on it is you're going to have to go this way down to the apex of the actual bowl itself, and then you're going to have to come back the other way to meet that line. It's because that's how it is. It's like it's a bowl. The grain direction is going like this. You can't just come straight across it like I'm doing right now for a nice knife finish, because what you're going to do is just slice the wood and cut it, and you're going to see that it's going to be sort of like gray or grainy kind of thing. Whereas when you have that knife finish that goes straight down the actual grain direction, that's where you get a super sheen, really nice, smooth wood finish. But again, that comes later when you're using stuff like a hook knife. So again, once this guy has done its job and taken off most of the wood, which you saw me, how long has it taken me? Just a couple minutes. I'm not winded or anything. It's pretty easy stuff. My hands don't hurt. I feel great. And then afterwards, once I start to refine the remainder of the actual spoon itself, then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pull this guy out and then actually refine the bowl itself. So what's this done for me? Well, it's saved me. It's saved my hands and my knuckles. It's saved my muscles, my wrists, joints, tendons, elbow. Absolutely saved it all. Just because I took the time to remove the material with the right tools and not doing it all by hand. One last time, this is literally the way that I do it. There's many, many more ways that you can do it. And again, is this the right way or the wrong way? It's completely up to the beholder. However you carve, whatever tools you have available, that is literally the way that you're going to do it until you decide to upgrade, tweak it, or do whatever else you need to do in order to make spoon carving more enjoyable for you and not like it's work. There was a point in my life when I actually felt that spoon carving was a bit of work for me and it was more like a job, and that's when I didn't like it at all, to be quite honest. Once I kind of made a couple of different moves and adjusted some things, it picked right back up again because it was so much more enjoyable. But that's another story for another day. Thank you so much for sitting on this video. Thank you for coming back. Thank you for subscribing. That's amazing. I feel so blessed and honored that you guys are subscribing to me. I just hope that I'm providing something for everybody to learn the small basics when it comes to spoon carving. Take it to your own home, your own kitchens, and produce something really nice for your friends and family. Or take it beyond that. So anyway, thanks for subscribing. Thanks for liking. Thanks for commenting. And I will see you in the next one, everybody.